请收看《唯心世界义工利人天》。
And so he leaves being a soldier and he strikes out to find enlightenment or find home in some way. He becomes a Taoist for a while and grows discouraged with that. He tries Pure Land Buddhism, and he would sing out to Amitabha Buddha. He said, I single-mindedly recite the name of the Amitabha, thinking that if I say it too slowly, my Wu Sheng Fu Mu in heaven will not hear me. My parents, my heavenly parents, so to speak, will not hear me. And then he sits down to meditate one day, and Richard Scheck has this great moment where he says, all of a sudden, during my meditation, I experienced great joy in my heart, not belonging to being and not belonging to non-being. I am true emptiness. The mother is me, and I am her. There's originally no distinction. With emptiness within and without, I am true emptiness. So he's now enlightened at age 40, and now he has to, of course, just like anybody who becomes enlightened, has to describe this ineffable, beyond words experience to people. And he uses this same language that he'd used in his own life about sort of reconnecting with mother and the homeland. And so he says, Wuji gives birth to heaven and earth. The people of earth are poor children, admonished to return home, but lack faith. Wuji is thinking of her descendants. With faith, the poor people can return home. There will be boundless joy. The great emptiness embraces everything. Originally, there is no duality. Children of one mother, stop making distinctions, and together you will escape destruction. So this is a kind of very abstract philosophical idea of nothingness, but metaphorically connected to the mother. And as Richard Scheck says, indeed, the emotive image of a divine mother who tearfully awaits the return of her estranged and suffering children is so appealing that it did not take long for some sectarians inspired by Luo Qing to propose it. And so we see, oh, my PowerPoint got messed up there a little bit, sorry. We see then that by 1523, my PowerPoint is, I think there's, hopefully it'll be okay. Oh, no, don't, yeah, just let it go. Yeah, that should be actually an image of Wuji, just like an empty circle. But that empty circle again gets replaced by the mother. And there gets to be these words popping up like Wu Ji Mu in these sectarian traditions, the infinite mother, or Wu Sheng Lao Mu, the thusness mother, so to speak. And so there's a precious scroll dated 1523, which is while Luo was still alive, which has some of these ideas. It opens in the land of the goddess, Wu Ji Mu. It's entering the third kalpa, so this idea of the three kalpas is there, ruled by Maitreya. Amitabha is sent to save 36 billion or 96 billion souls, and he's sent with a 10-step method of cultivation, which is actually a 9-step method with the 10th being nothingness, and that becomes important later as well. So Luoism now pops onto our map here. And then in 1654, you get the full flowering of this idea and the whole story in the Dragonflower Sutra. And I'll just quickly go through the Dragonflower Sutra. Basically, in this one, you get a Wu Ji and a Wu Sheng. Wu Ji gets affiliated with God, and Wu Sheng gets associated with the mother. And they then work with Fuxi and Nuwa to create the first human beings. And and I apologize, I made a giant PowerPoint, and I think it overwhelmed that computer. So there are a few mistakes, but they're not in the original PowerPoint. That's just something that went a little haywire, but it's okay. Some of the labels will be mixed up. So the 96 billion souls come to Earth, and originally they have these halos. I just want to mention real quick, if you're wondering about these illustrations, what I did to create these, I often just took some of the Chinese text from these scriptures, and I would put it in ChatGPT 4, and then it would create an image for it. And then I would like massage it a little bit to create some of these things here. So originally everyone was a wandering saint, and each seeing the Wusheng parents, and they could travel to the east and to the west, like literally the east being earth and the west being heaven. And this halo covered their body, but then they lose that halo. And this is like our original home here. You can see it's by a 7-treasure pond with 8 virtues waters. That's important elements that'll pop up later as well. Right, so this has now the 3-stage eschatology, the dragon flower assembly, and the Buddhist elements are sort of mapped onto Taoist elements here. And then the teacher Amitabha presents to the ancient Buddha a chart of the eon. He unfolds it for the ancient Buddha to see with the mysterious text written on it. And the verse says, the Eon Sutra, 3 Buddhas passing, another cycle begins, ending the 108,000 years. All sorts of suffering arrive. So there's a big calamity coming. So that's when she meets Gongchang and sends him to the east, to Earth, to save people. And so they're watching him, and they observe him in the eastern land, sitting upright on the meditation bed, casting off worldly concerns, purifying his heart. And they call him back to heaven. And there's this great conversation in the sutra in which they say, what practice have you been doing down there? And he says, oh, I followed the Buddha's practice, receiving the 3 refuges and the 5 precepts, awakening the karmic spirits, guarding the doors, focusing on the needle. And they say, that's just sitting idly. How long did you do that? And then she goes on to say, now I'll pass on to you a rare dharma, gathering purity, exchanging impurity, ascending, descending, open the gates and reveal the orifices, break apart and release the split body, retrieve it, see Wusheng, transcend Buddhas and ancestors, perpetuate eternal life. Mother passes you 10 practices to save sentient beings. So these are like 9 steps and then returning home again, like into nothingness. There's also a mention of 9 grades of heaven, which becomes important in Cao Dai. And then there's a large dragon boat that's sent to save people and bring them back to the dragon flower assembly. All of this is essential to Cao Dai cosmology, and it's appearing in 1654. And if you then map all this out, you can see additions of Confucianism, French Catholicism, as well as Spiritism and Theosophy. All of that combines into Cao Dai. Now, within Cao Dai, what you see is that, like I said, there's no like direct scripture for any of this, but there is a sermon from 1935 called Explanation of the Dragon Boat. And in that sermon, all of these elements are brought up. Here you can see the time of chaos, heaven and earth had divided, and Kim Mo Du Tree, this is the mother goddess, also called Lao Mo. And she then creates the 100 million original souls, is what it says here. And then you can see there's a mention of the first Dragonflower Assembly, or the Dragonflower Assembly, and bringing the boat to bring the souls to the world. And then you can see it references, it says, as stated in the 1st and 2nd volumes of the Noklokimban. So I had to figure out what that is. So I went searching for that text, and I found it. And there's actually a predecessor to that in Chinese from 1881. And so this is a really beautiful, beautiful text, which is essentially written by the Golden Mother Goddess. And she's crying for her children who are lost on earth, and her tears become the words. And it's just such a gorgeous text. And this, of course, is being received through spirit writing. And so this is a Zhenchen Dao master who is receiving it. And one of the studies of this suggests that after 40 years, his cultivation in the Taoist alchemy had reached a considerable level. So the author believes that the primary purpose of the clergyman Mao in writing Jade Du Golden Plate was to expound on his decades of cultivation experience. And so this is the first time we see this name, Yao Qi Jinmu, which is the name that most Cao Dai use, Yutri Kimo. And this also connects then with the Queen Western Mother of Heaven, and then some of the imagery that comes out of things like the Monkey King, which is really important in Cao Dai as well. They always feature the Monkey King in parades and things like that. So we have kind of the full imagery emerging now, and the golden, you can see this is her preface. All of this is just so beautiful. It's worth reading if you're interested. But the basic story, again, is that same kind of story where she creates the 96 billion souls. She then creates a little string bag, a little treasure bag, and puts 8 treasures in it. And those treasures are Confucian virtues. And those virtues are necessary to travel to and from heaven. And this is a really, really interesting part of my research because now we're actually talking about the same mother goddess of the Cao Dai. So I was able to then message my Cao Dai friends and send them pictures of what ChatGPT was giving me and saying, hey, is this how you imagine this? Does this look right? And then they would give me feedback and we could go back and forth, and we just did iteration after iteration after iteration until we finally came up with something that looked kind of like what they imagined. So this was a very long process, but also really fun and interesting. And so in this story, everybody gets a little treasure bag at the peach banquet before heading to Earth. And in the Chinese version, basically the people are like, their souls are like little pieces of rice that are poured down to Earth. But in the sermon from 1935, they are brought by boat. And then at first, things are pretty rough. They live in a very primitive state, and the Mother Goddess is sad to see this. So she sends saints and other people to teach them more sort of civilized ways, you might say. But then this is in the Chinese version. This figure, Guluan Sedan, this is actually Satan, and the Zhenqian Dao priest who originally wrote this through spirit writing had encountered a sermon about Satan and had worked it into the myth here, you might say. So it's pretty interesting to see Satan showing up here. But Satan controls the 5 elements, and he tells the 5 elements to mess with people. And so what happens is that metal becomes money, and people lose faith and loyalty to their gems. Then wood becomes beauty, and people lose propriety and care. Then water becomes alcohol, and people lose morality and learning. And all the while, they're losing their gems. Fire then becomes anger, and they lose family and integrity. And finally, earth becomes addiction, and they lose the bag altogether. So now they're lost on Earth, and the Mother Goddess sends dragon boats to save people. First, Fuxi and other ancient sages come, and then Jesus and Sakyamuni and Lao Tzu and Confucius, and now a third boat is coming, and this is the Cao Dai. So this imagery plays out in some Cao Dai videos as well. This is from Cao Dai TV. Oh.
Linh căn ngày đó xuống trần ai, cái vui mừng nhập mẫu thai, vì bất vũ nan mê nghiệt hải, làm sao tính đặng trở hồi lai.
And you can see some of the challenge again in translating this is that if you heard that obviously, rhymed and had some resonance there. So you could then play with that a little bit and think of other, is it worth changing the English meaning a little bit to maintain that rhythm and rhyme is one question that we could ask. So I'm just going to scoot past that one. So you can see here that the Zhenqian Dao tradition sticks very close to the Taoist, and you can see the main ideas here is this sort of 9 steps ending with the 10th uniting with nothingness. But while Ho Fap and the Cao Dai have this idea is present, this idea of sort of cultivating Qi to transform and ultimately unite into nothingness. Most of that has been picked up by other branches, especially the Chu Min branch of Cao Dai, whereas the Tei Nin branch, which is where I study, has a different way of framing this 9-step process, and it's really captured mostly in this really beautiful and fantastic imagery of the 9 grades of heaven, which the reference for this are some prayers and this chart that will show up at any Cao Dai temple, as well as some sermons by Hofap. And you can see that these like drawings that you can see of what happens to the spirit after it dies are actually acted out in real life. So here he is actually cutting this 7 strands of karma that hold us to earth after we die. So that frees the soul. And then he's drawing the soul out, and then they will put the soul on a dragon boat and take the dragon boat out to the cemetery. So here you can see the soul actually getting, the body getting on the dragon boat, but in the spirit world, the soul is doing the same thing. And then it's traveling through these layers of heaven, and every 9 days, the Cao Dai meet to sing, in a way, to chant and sing the soul through the layers of heaven. And those chants and prayers give them a constant reminder of what the heaven looks like. And it's just a short video of what it looks like at one of these weekly or every 9 days chants. So I just want to take you quickly through heaven and what it looks like. Some people have to be punished and purified. They go through the fire of samadhi. Then they come to a karma mirror where they see all of their past lives. And here you can see Hofap talking about this. And then they come to a book of no words. And the book opens up and starts to populate with everything in their multiple past lives. And so now your soul is actually becoming very wise and becomes very calm. And you actually get to decide what happens next, whether you reincarnate or if you'll move on. And all the world's religious leaders are there to watch. Hofap talks about this really beautifully.
I believe you have 1 minute.
Yeah, I know.
So you are arrived at the 7th heaven, and
yeah.
journey ends here.
We're getting there. We're going to get to all the way. So in the 8th heaven, it says here Kung Ditbu, which would mean exterminate your treasures. But in fact, my friend went to other temples and found out that that was actually just probably a mistranslation from the Chinese, and that it actually means to examine the 8 treasures. And those 8 treasures are that treasure bag we talked about before. And there's a spirit message from the Mother Goddess relating to that. And so then finally, you get to come home. We return to Mother Home. And the Mother Goddess has kept pictures from all of our past lives. And it's like walking through your real mother's home, who keeps your old toys and things like that. You get to meet your spirit family. And then one of the most beautiful lines here is that Hofap mentions that when you look up and you see the Mother Goddess, but she will appear exactly as you want her to appear. And he says, this is very mysterious. However, I can assure you one thing. You will see your own mother. When we see her, all our past love returns. It is indescribable. Even those who are hard-hearted will become emotional. So I'm just reminded here of, I'll just scoot ahead to this. So I'm reminded here, just draw this last connection. You know, in one way, this is like a very abstract idea from Luo that we can ascend into nothingness in sort of through thinking our way there. But for most people, that's a hard process. And, you know, Arjuna asked Krishna once, he said, between those who steadfastly love you and those who seek you as the eternal formless reality, who do you prefer? And he says, those who set their hearts on me. He says, both attain me, but worship of the unmanifest is exceedingly difficult for embodied beings. And one of the things that I think is so beautiful about Cao Dai is how they've bring out this emotion of religion and allow us all to communally think about what it is to unite and have that sense of feeling that connection, which feels a bit like enlightenment sometimes. So thank you.
Thank you. And now we move to Korea. We will have a paper about Victory Altar, which is a nice movement who sends people every year to our Chesnur conference, and nobody understands what we are talking about. But the good news is Bernadette is the only one who understands everything, and so finally she will explain what the theology of the Victory Altar is all about.
Yeah. Yeah, I only have. I'm very sorry to be speaking after you, Michael, because I don't have many images. In fact, not at all, because I'm going to talk about Protestantism, which is which is doesn't like iconography too much, or at least didn't used to. Also, I don't know if it is an honor or a punishment to be the last to speak after 3 full days. So I hope to keep you awake for at least 20 minutes. I have revised last night. I shouldn't be doing more than 20 minutes. So the idea came, in fact, thank you, Massimo, for reminding us, last June when our friends from Victory Altar, whom I met thanks to you in Korea a few years ago, came to Vilnius, to Cessner, and had a full session on their beliefs. And indeed, we can't understand what they say because their level of English is really terrible. And it's very complicated. But, you know, I thought, well, I should try to understand because I have their books. And I visited them. So, and I've been trying for quite a few years to understand the heritage of Protestantism in Korea. Why is it so popular? And I was intrigued by the Korean messiahs, who are very special. So this is I have a long paper, and of course I cut it down to 20 minutes. So if you're interested, I can send the full paper later. This is really sketchy today. All right, so my title is Messiahs, Victory Altar and the Koreanization of Protestantism. So PPT 1 and 2. Okay, the second one. Yeah, this is the general outline. And this is pretty much the only PowerPoint you will see, except afterwards 1 or 2 images. Okay. So Korea, as you probably know, or at least a lot of you here know, has staged 2 of the most intriguing episodes of the expansion of Christianity outside of the West and of its colonies. First in the 18th century with the epochs, or the original event of the first conversions of Korean scholars to Catholicism without local evangelization, and later in the 19th century, the rapid success of Protestant missionaries, thanks to their social actions, etc., and special links to the royal family. Both events made the religion so attractive that in South Korea today, Christianity, with a large Protestant majority, numbers as many believers as Buddhism, that is some 25% of the total population, which is a unique case in Asia, the Philippines, of course, excluded, but that's for different reasons. Even if Protestant groups have somehow adapted or indigenized their discourse, they have, for the most part, retained the doctrines and practices characteristic of their North American ancestors. I'm talking about the Methodists, the Presbyterians, etc. But not so with another major grouping of Korean religions, also deriving from North American Protestantism, but which have transformed it in a most idiosyncratic manner. These groups were founded by religious entrepreneurs who strategically built their movement on the attractivity of Christianity and twisted it almost beyond recognition to fit their fellow citizens' expectations. They first borrowed the biblical narrative in fundamentalist mode, Koreanized it by incorporating it with or into Buddhist and Taoist elements, about which I will not speak because I'm totally unable to do so. But this was in order to assuage profound spiritual, cultural, and political anxieties specific to South Korea, or Koreans at the time. One such group is the important but little studied, except by Massimo Introvigne, a group called Victory Altar, founded in 1981 by Cho Hee-sung. Studying this group will allow us to track the links that unite religions to the social, cultural, and political fabric in which they have been hatched, so to speak. When the founder claims to have received divine inspiration, how is she or he going to formulate it in order to win over potential converts? The message may scare the receiver by accusing him or her of living in a world of perdition and demanding that he or she change his or her faith radically or change society from within. And there are different modes. Another mode of apprehension of the world by the religious leader may, on the contrary, reinforce the contract, the covenant between the individual and his or her society through the sacralization of various of its social, cultural, political features. And I think this is what this particular Korean messiah has been doing, because his teachings, as you will see, and his self-proclamation as Victor Christ and God shows that he is a universal messiah, but with a Korean passport. And he demonstrates hereby the incarnation in his own flesh of the divine election of his country and of its people.